Hello everybody, Tristube here, and today we're going to be ranking Pyro's flamethrowers in Team Fortress 2. Now I do want to mention that everything in this video is my opinion, and purely to entertain and inform. So please do not get angry in the comments if I put your favorite flamethrower in a lower tier. With that out of the way, enjoy the video. Starting off this list, we have the stock flamethrower. I decided to put it in S tier simply because I believe it's Pyro's most reliable flamethrower. It has the least amount of gimmicks, and it can air blast more than the other flamethrowers without requiring as many ammo packs. It deals good, consistent damage and isn't held back by any debuffs. It could probably be dropped down to A tier, but seeing how it's the flamethrower I use the most, I think it deserves the highest spot. Next up we have the Degreaser. This one may be a bit controversial, but I decided to give it an A ranking. I just don't think that the Degreaser's higher switch speed justifies the extra air blast cost and the decreased afterburn damage, as the switch speed is hardly noticeable to casual players. The best use of the Degreaser is when it is paired up with secondaries such as the flare gun and the panic attack, but I feel that using the stock flamethrower paired with the flare gun doesn't feel any less effective than using the flare gun with the Degreaser. However, the faster switch speed does allow for higher damage output if used correctly. Using the faster switch speed combined with the panic attack, which already has a faster switch speed by itself, can enable Pyro to deal serious damage at close range, but you would need a fair bit amount of skill to pull that combo off. So that's why I think the Degreaser is a solid A tier. Next on our list is the Backburner, which I believe is a B tier flamethrower. Now you may be thinking, why is the Backburner so high up? It should be lower. Well, I put it in B tier simply because the Backburner brings a whole new energy to Pyro, turning him from an ambush player to a stealth player. The Backburner relies on you being in the right place at the right time. What keeps it out of higher tiers, however, is the abysmal air blast cost and the fact that the main gimmick of the Backburner doesn't even work half the time it seems. For those who don't know, the Backburner's main gimmick is that it deals 3 times more damage if the enemy has their back turned to you. Now let's say that the critical hits do work 100% of the time. Well, most good players will notice that they are taking an unreal amount of damage and will snap behind and find you turning them into barbecue. If it's a heavy, you will probably die. If it's a soldier or a group of soldiers, the 150% extra air blast cost would mean that you could only deflect so many rockets and still have ammo left over for offense. If it's an engineer, then they would probably backpedal into a nearby sentry nest and you would get utterly destroyed. I guess my main point is, Pyro doesn't have a good enough defense on his own to deal with situations like being behind enemy lines, and the Backburner doesn't exactly shore up any weaknesses, so for that, B tier. Our next item is the Dragon's Fury. Now I really like the Dragon's Fury. Out of all the flamethrowers, it's definitely the most unique, being a projectile-based weapon instead of a steady stream of fire. That may seem like a downgrade, and when it comes to dealing with spies and scouts, you'd probably be correct. Yet I believe the Dragon's Fury remains as a great PvP tool. The Dragon's Fury has a special feature which allows you to deal 300% the normal damage to enemy players that are already on fire. So hitting your shots consecutively means dealing an insane amount of damage to a single target. This trick even works on other pyros, who are normally resistant to fire and don't stay burning after receiving fire damage. However, the Dragon's Fury has an attribute where it shoots fireballs at a faster rate of fire if you can hit your shots consecutively, so you can deal that 300% damage to pyros because the game would register them as being on fire. With all the reasons I love the Dragon's Fury out of the way, I do think I should discuss some of the shortcomings I believe that it has. So, I don't think that the Dragon's Fury synergizes that well with any pyro secondaries. Pyro's regular flamethrowers always deal consistent damage, so you may switch to a secondary weapon and attack with any flare guns or shotguns. Meanwhile, the Dragon's Fury rewards you for hitting fireballs consecutively by making them deal more damage and shoot faster at a single target, so it sort of implies that the weapon's better off by itself than being used in any combos. I personally don't mind this. I myself do enjoy combos every now and then, but I don't think a lot of other people mind this either. So unless you want style points for switching weapons on the fly, the Dragon's Fury is your gun, and it may even give the stock flamethrower a run for its money. Who knows? Our next flamethrower is the Nosrtrom Napalmer. I'll keep this one short. It is a reskin of the stock flamethrower, which means that it does all of the same things, so for that it gets an instant S tier. I do want to mention some of the fun features of this weapon though. As a reskin, It does do all of the same things, but with the added bonus of doing extra damage to people who also equip the Nosrtrom Napalmer. I just think that is a fun gimmick, and I also like how the Napalmer takes up the smallest amount of screen space of any of the other flamethrowers. I'm also going to rank the next stock flamethrower reskin, the Rainblower. You may be wondering why I put it in C tier and not S tier for the same reason I put the Nosrtrom Napalmer in S tier. Well, I put it in C tier mainly because the main gimmick of this weapon as a reskin is to make you see everything like it's Pyroland. The problem with this is that there's no maps that are compatible with Pyroland anymore. All the maps that you would see Pyroland in are old TF2 maps. The devs kind of stopped supporting the Pyroland textures, because they'd have to make 2 versions of every map for it to work, which is why when you use the Pyrovision goggles or you use any other item that's compatible with Pyroland on a new map, you would just see things as normal. The only difference being weapon trails or bubbles or rainbows, and people still laugh when they die. All that is pretty nice and charming at first, but it gets pretty annoying after a while, especially if you're not seeing everything else as Pyroland and you're not like fully immersed. And now for our next real ranking, the Phlogistinator, or just simply the Phlog. The Phlog is a fine weapon. It's consistent, it's reliable, and it gets everybody in the server angry at you. What's not to like? Well, the Phlog's main gimmick is that it gives you 100% guaranteed critical hits after you deal 300 points of fire damage, and taunting. Taunting activates the crits. So you would get 3 times damage for a solid 10 seconds minus the amount of times it takes to taunt. The downside of this weapon is never being able to air blast, so you can't extinguish teammates without the man melter equipped, and you can't deflect other projectiles. In my opinion, air blast is way too important for me to sacrifice, and I only really use the Phlog in man versus machine or other specific situations in a casual match. I think this weapon is a fine mid-tier weapon, maybe a little above average based on its pure damage, but it's like I said before with the Backburner, the Phlog doesn't shore up any of Pyro's weaknesses to back up any of the major offensive upsides, so B tier. And now, for the most important flamethrower on this list. The flamethrower from Team Fortress Classic. I have to admit, I didn't know much about this weapon before making this video, but after playing with the classic flamethrower and doing some research, I can safely say that this weapon does not hold up by TF2 standards. In Team Fortress Classic, abbreviated as TFC, each mercenary has a specific armor class. There's heavy, medium, or light armor that affects damage taken. Although TFC mercenaries seem to have less health, their armor provides bonus health and damage resistance. Heavy armor classes, though slower, can tank more damage. The flamethrower is less effective against them. Even light armor classes, like scouts, can outrun the flames, and snipers are often out of range. The flamethrower in TFC deals 20 damage on contact, reduced to 6 for heavy armor classes, 5 to enemy pyros, 9 to medium armor classes, and 15 to light armor classes. Plus, the afterburn only deals 2 damage per second, compared to TF2's 4 damage twice per second. To add insult to injury, Pyro can't air blast in TFC, making the flamethrower feel more like a utility than a primary weapon. Throughout all of the disgust I feel for this weapon, I do admit that it encourages more creative plays like using the shotgun, incendiary cannon, and grenades instead. So while some might find this cool, I think the TFC flamethrower is F tier compared to TF2's much more superior firepower. Alrighty, looks like that's all of the flamethrowers. Did you agree with my rankings? If you didn't, please feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. I'm happy to read them all. If you guys want to see more TF2 content by yours truly, then smash that subscribe button and join me on my journey to 100 subs. I also stream every Sunday. The link to my Twitch is in the description below. I look forward to seeing you all live. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Ha ha!